Most married men at some point in their life have heard this line, happy wife, happy life. I first heard it as a firefighter. This is where I was working 48-hour shifts, living with these guys, eating together, killing time between calls, sleeping in the same building. And in all that downtime, there's no real agenda. Guys are cracking jokes, passing down lines they heard from the older firefighters before them, who heard them from the older firefighters before them. And it's just stuff that's been living in the firehouse for generations. And this was one of the first times I heard it, when one of the older guys dropped it. Happy wife, happy life, brother. And everyone laughed. It wasn't a lesson. Nobody sat down and explained it. It was just part of the air, the way the older married guys talked about marriage when the younger guys were listening. And it stuck. Some of them meant it as advice, like go home and take care of your wife, keep the peace. Some of them meant it as sarcasm, like the whole thing was a joke they'd stopped laughing at a long time ago. And some of them, if you listened close, meant something heavier underneath. Like being married meant giving up. Like being a good husband meant losing yourself. The honey-do list, the yes dear, the unspoken deal of I go out and break my back and she gets whatever she wants. And if she's happy, then I guess I'm doing it right. That was the mentality. And it sounded like wisdom because everybody said it. Your dad might have said it. Your buddies might have said it. You hear it at work, at barbecues, at family dinners, in the locker room. It's one of those phrases that just floats around so long, nobody questions it anymore. And most men never stop to ask whether it's actually true. But here's what nobody in that firehouse ever talked about. This whole saying rests on one idea, that you are responsible for your wife's happiness, that her emotional state is your job, and if you can just keep her happy, your own life will fall into place. Nobody ever stopped to ask what that actually does to a man. So what happens to him? What happens to his wife living on the other end of it? And what happens to the marriage they're both standing in? That's what this episode is about. Today, we're going to break down where happy wife, happy life comes from, what it does to you when you build your marriage around it, what your wife actually experiences on the other side, and why the flip side, making her responsible for your happiness, is just as costly. By the end of this episode, you're going to know the difference between being responsible for her happiness and being responsible to her, what it actually looks like to be there for her without losing yourself in the process, and how that shift changes how you show up for her and for yourself. Stick around. You don't want to miss this one. Welcome to Better Husband, the podcast that helps you answer the question, how can I be a better husband? I'm Angelo Santiago, a men's marriage and relationship coach, and every week I bring you practical insights to help you strengthen your marriage and become the best husband you can be. Now let's get back to happy wife, happy life. See, I carried that phrase with me for a long time, not as a motto, more like background noise. It was the kind of thing that just sat in me. It shaped how I thought about marriage without really realizing it. And for years, I lived some version of it, not even intentionally, but that instinct, keep her happy, keep the peace, and things will be fine. It was running underneath everything. I didn't question it because it seemed like it was working. She's not upset? Good. No argument tonight? Good. The house is calm? Great. Then I must be doing something right. Her mood was my report card, and I didn't even know I was doing it. What changed was a stretch my wife and I went through where we were rebuilding. We'd been through hard stuff, really hard stuff, and we were finding our way back to each other. And part of that process was reading together. We'd sit down at the end of the day and take turns reading passages out loud. Not trying to fix anything in that moment, but just being together with something honest on the table. And one of the books we were reading was called Clarity and Connection by Young Pueblo. It's a daily reader, really poetic, really introspective, full of strong passages, and a lot of them are about relationship. And there's one reading on page 126 that stood out to me. It went like this. Maturity in a relationship is not expecting your partner to constantly be happy. Ups and downs are natural. Giving each other space to feel heavy emotions while staying attentive and actively supporting one another is a sign of real love. Relationships are not about fixing everything for each other. They are about experiencing joyful moments and tough times as a team and loving each other through the changes. Sometimes your partner needs to go through their own process to emerge lighter and freer than before. That's Young Pueblo, Clarity and Connection, page 126. And when I read that, it really had an impact on me because I'd been the man who tried to fix my wife's emotions. I'd been the man who thought her sadness meant I was failing. I'd been the man who measured how I was doing as a husband by how happy she was on any given day. And that passage named the thing I couldn't see on my own. Maturity in a relationship is not expecting your partner to be constantly happy. What that reading told me is that I could stop trying to read the room every time she walked through the door. I could stop treating her quiet moments like something I needed to fix. Now, every Monday morning in Better Husband Academy, we have a short call, a reset call that sets the standard for the week ahead. And one of the things we do on that call is read a passage from Clarity and Connection. And a couple weeks ago, I brought page 126 to that Monday morning call. And what came up in the room was exactly what I expected because I'd lived all of it already. One man talked about being a people pleaser. He knows he can never fully keep her from being upset, but the pull is still there. The idea that if he just does enough, she won't be unhappy. Another man described swinging between two extremes, going full fix-it mode when she's upset, then pulling back and avoiding her completely when it gets exhausting. He assumes he's responsible for her unhappiness even when he has nothing to do with it, and he doesn't know when to step in and when to step back. Every one of these men is wrestling with the same thing. They care about their wives, they're trying, but they've built their entire sense of being a good husband around managing her emotional state, and it's not working, not for them and not for her. That's what we're going to dig into. So let's go back to happy wife, happy life. Where does it actually come from? Is there anything real behind it, or is it just something guys have been repeating to each other for decades? Well, it turns out somebody actually studied this. In 2014, a study came out in the Journal of Marriage and Family. They looked at almost 400 married couples, long marriages, close to 40 years on average, and asked, does one partner's happiness affect the other's well-being? And what they found was real. A wife's happiness in the marriage did have a measurable effect on her husband's overall life satisfaction. When she was happier in the relationship, his life was better too. That part is true. But here's what happened next. The media picked it up and ran with the headline, happy wife, happy life, science proves it. And the actual finding got cut in half because the study also found the same thing going the other direction. When husbands were happier in the marriage, wives were happier too. Both partners' satisfactions mattered. Both directions were real. The researchers weren't saying, make your wife happy and your life will be good. They were saying both people's happiness matters. And when one person is suffering in the marriage, the whole thing suffers. And sit with that for a second because it's the half that got thrown away. When one person is suffering, the whole thing suffers. That includes you. The research never said keep her happy and your own misery doesn't count. It said the opposite. Your well-being is built right into the equation. So the husband running on empty to keep his wife's mood up isn't actually protecting the marriage. He's one of the two people in it who isn't okay. And that pulls on everything, whether it ever gets named out loud or not. But that's not a catchy bumper sticker. The thought of both partners' well-being contributes to mutual life satisfaction doesn't fit on a t-shirt. So what stuck was the version that puts it all on the man. Keep her happy and you'll be fine. And that's the lie. Her happiness matters, of course it does, but the saying takes a two-way truth and turns it into a one-way obligation. It tells you her emotional state is your job, that if she's unhappy, you failed, that the measure of a good husband is how well he keeps her mood in a good place, and that's not partnership. That's a job, and her mood is your paycheck. And once that's running you, everything she feels becomes about you. She had a rough day at work, you start scanning, what did I do? She's quiet at dinner, you're already running through the last 48 hours trying to figure out what went wrong. She's frustrated with the kids, and your first thought isn't about her, it's about whether you're about to catch the spillover. That's what the lie does. It takes a man who cares about his wife and turns him into a man who's tracking her mood because his own peace depends on it. Now let's look at what's actually happening inside the man who tries to live by the happy wife, happy life motto. What's going on inside him when he lives that way? Why does he track her mood like his life depends on it? Well, there's a popular book called No More Mr. Nice Guy by Robert Glover. And one of the things Glover identifies is something he calls covert contracts. It's an unspoken deal a man makes in his own head that the other person doesn't even know exists. It goes something like this. If I do everything right, she'll be happy. If she's happy, she won't be upset with me. If she's not upset with me, my life will be smooth. And that's the contract. He never says it out loud. She never agreed to it, but he's operating as if it's a binding agreement. And when she doesn't hold up her end of the deal that she never made, he gets frustrated, resentful, and sometimes confused. And what makes it worse is that most of this looks like love on the surface. He's giving, he's sacrificing, he's putting her first. But Glover makes a distinction that matters: the difference between caring and caretaking. Caring is giving from a full place. You do something for your wife because you want to, because you see what she needs, because it comes from genuine connection. There's no receipt attached. Caretaking is different. Caretaking is giving because you need her to be okay so you can be okay. You're not giving from love, you're giving from fear. You're trying to keep her in a good place because when she's upset, your whole system goes off. Her unhappiness feels like your failure. So you do more, you give more, you suppress more, not because she asked for it, but because you can't handle what happens inside you when she's not happy. And the research backs this up. A study on sacrifice in relationship found that when a man gives something up for his wife because he genuinely wants to be closer to her, that's healthy. Both people feel better. But when he gives something up to avoid conflict, to keep the peace, to dodge her disappointment, that backfires. It builds resentment, it drains him, and over time, it makes both of them less satisfied. The motivation is what matters. And for the man living inside happy wife, happy life, the motivation is almost always avoidance. He's not moving toward her. He's moving away from his own discomfort. This is exactly what one of the men on the call was describing. He said he does everything he can to avoid making his wife mad. He thinks it's about her, keeping her happy, keeping things calm, but the real reason is that he can't sit with what it feels like when she's not okay. And he knows it's not working, but the pull is so strong he can't stop. Because underneath all of it is a belief most men never say out loud. If I'm good enough, she'll be happy. And if she's happy, I'll be safe. And a man will run his entire marriage from that place without ever questioning whether the deal was real to begin with. If you've been putting in the work to becoming a better husband, you've been reading, listening to this podcast, trying to show up better at home, and things still aren't changing, well, a lot of men are in the same place. They're putting in that real effort and watching it go nowhere. And the longer that goes on, the more ground you lose. I have a free workshop at betterhusbandsecrets.com where I share 3 secrets most men miss when they're trying to fix their marriage. Effort matters, but effort pointed at the wrong thing keeps you stuck. And that's what happened to me. I was trying harder than I'd ever tried, and it was making things worse. It almost cost me my marriage. This workshop is free, and it might be the most useful thing you do this week. Go to betterhusbandsecrets.com to watch it now, or click the link in the show notes. Now, back to the show. Now let's flip it. We've been looking at it from his side, what he's doing, why he's doing it, what's driving it. But what about her? What's it like to be married to this man? Well, first of all, she can tell. That's the part most men don't realize. She can feel the difference between a husband who's with her and a husband who's working on her. When he walks into the room already scanning her face for signs of trouble, she feels that. When he agrees to something he doesn't actually want to do just to keep things smooth, she feels the hollowness in it. He's curious, but because he needs her to say yes, she knows what that is. What she feels in that moment isn't love. It feels like being handled, like she's a situation he's trying to keep under control, like her emotions are a problem he's trying to solve before they become his problem. And over time, she starts to pull back. She stops bringing him things. She still needs to talk, but every time she does, she watches him tighten. She sees the anxiety behind the helpfulness. She realizes that when she shares something hard, his first move isn't to listen, it's to fix it, contain it, or make it go away. And that tells her something. He's not here for me. He's here for himself. He's doing this so he can feel okay, not so I can. This is what the lie costs on her side. He thinks he's holding the marriage together. She feels like she's living with a man who's doing everything a husband is supposed to, except actually being there. And so far, we've been talking about it one direction, you taking responsibility for her happiness, but this goes both ways. That reading from Clarity and Connection, go back to the words. Relationships are about experiencing joyful moments and tough times as a team, about loving each other through the changes. And that's not one person off the hook and the other carrying everything. That's 2 people showing up for each other, a partnership. So when I say this goes both ways, I mean she was never meant to carry you any more than you were meant to carry her. And that's where this gets uncomfortable for a lot of guys. In all my years of working with men, there's one question I've come to notice is one of the hardest for them to answer. I ask it on retreats, on coaching calls, and real conversations with friends. I ask, what brings you joy? And you can't say work, and you can't say your family, and you can't say your kids. And typically, when I ask that question, the man goes quiet. Not because he doesn't want to answer it, but because he genuinely doesn't know. He sits there trying to think of something, and what usually comes back is either silence or one thing. Camping, fishing, golf, being outdoors, one thing. And when I ask how often he actually gets to do that thing, the answer is almost always not enough. once a month if he's lucky, a couple times a year. So the only thing that brings this man joy is something he barely has access to. His happiness has no foundation under it. So what happens? You start depending on her without realizing it. She walks in the door in a good mood and your whole body relaxes. She's tense or quiet and you tighten up. Your emotional state is running on her timer. If she's in a good mood, your evening is good. If she's frustrated or distant, your whole night falls apart. You've handed her your emotional thermostat without ever saying it out loud. And now she's carrying the weight of your well-being on top of her own, and she didn't sign up for that either. This is the flip side of the lie. Happy wife, happy life makes her happiness your responsibility, but a lot of men have also made their own happiness her responsibility. They just never notice because it doesn't come with a catchy phrase. If you can't be okay on your own, if your mood rises and falls with hers, then you've given her a job she can't do. And the burden of that will wear on her the same way your caretaking wears on her. She doesn't want to be responsible for your emotional life any more than you should be responsible for hers. So what does it actually look like when you stop living by the happy wife, happy life lie? This doesn't mean you check out, go cold, or stop caring about her. A lot of men hear you're not responsible for her happiness and swing straight into selfishness. And that's the other extreme, and it's not what I'm talking about. The better frame is simpler than you think. You're not responsible for her happiness. You're responsible to her. And there's a difference. Responsible for means her emotional state is your job. If she's unhappy, you failed. You carry it, you fix it, you make it go away. Responsible to means you show up honestly, you pay attention, you're present, but her feelings are hers and yours are yours. You can sit next to your wife while she's having a rough day and not try to solve it. You can ask, do you need anything from me right now? And be okay if the answer is no. You can hold steady when she's frustrated without taking it as a verdict on you. That's what the young Pueblo passage was really about. Giving each other space to feel heavy emotions while staying attentive. You're not there to fix it and you're not there to run from it. You stay close while she goes through her own process and you can trust that she can. And on your side, you build a life that doesn't rise and fall with her mood. Remember that question I asked men, what brings you joy? And I told them you couldn't say your work, your family, or your kids. Now, what I'm saying is not that those things shouldn't bring you joy. Of course they should. Your wife, your kids, the work you do, those can be some of the deepest joys in your life, but they can't be the only things holding you up. Because if your wife's happiness is one of the only things that brings you happiness, then when she walks in the door in a bad mood, you don't just notice it, you collapse right there with her. So you find things that are actually yours. Time with your friends, something you build or fix with your hands, a workout, a long walk, a quiet hour with a cup of coffee before the house wakes up, your own steadiness, the kind that doesn't depend on whether she's having a good day. That's the ground you stand on. So when she walks in the door heavy, you can be there for her whether she's happy, sad, frustrated, scared, or confused because you're not borrowing your okay from her. This is what it looks like in real life. She comes home stressed, you notice it, you don't check her face for a problem to solve, you don't start running through what you might have done wrong, you just turn toward her and say, hey, how's your day? You want to talk about it? And if she wants to talk, you listen. If she needs space, you give it. And either way, your evening isn't ruined because her rough day doesn't have to become your crisis. That's a marriage between two whole people who take care of their own emotional lives and still choose to turn toward each other. Two people who support without suffocating, who love without losing themselves in it. And that's what happy wife, happy life was never going to give you. So that's the whole picture. Happy wife, happy life tells you you're responsible for her happiness, and a lot of us quietly handed her the same job in return, making her responsible for ours. We just looked at what that does to you, what it does to her, and what it looks like to trade it for something better, being responsible to her instead of for her. Now, let's make it practical. Here's your awareness question for the week. Think about the last time your wife had a hard day. She came home upset or frustrated or just off. What was your first move? Were you trying to understand what she was going through, or were you trying to figure out what you did wrong? And here's the second one. When's the last time you felt genuinely good, settled, at ease, enjoying something, and it had nothing to do with her mood? If you can't answer that, that gives you something worth sitting with. Now, here are 3 action steps you can take this week. First, the next time your wife is upset, catch yourself before you react. Ask yourself one question. Am I trying to understand her, or am I trying to make this feeling go away? If the answer is make it go away, pause, don't fix, don't flee, just ask her, do you need anything from me right now? And if she says no, let that be okay. Second, take the joy question seriously. Sit down and write out what brings you happiness outside of your wife, your kids, and your work. Not what used to, not what might someday, what actually fills you up right now. And if the list is short, that's your starting point. If it's empty, that's the work. Third, do one thing from that list this week. Not a huge trip, not 5 hours of interrupted time, just one real thing that's yours. Go for a drive, pick up the guitar, walk by yourself for 20 minutes, start building a foundation under your own happiness, because right now, if the only thing holding your mood up is her mood, you've handed her a weight she never agreed to carry. And lastly, for accountability, if any of this hit home, the mood tracking, the covert contracts, the empty joy list, you don't have to figure it out alone. If you find yourself holding on to your wife's happiness and you can see the toll it's taking, or you're leaning on her for your own happiness and you can see what it's doing to your marriage, know that you're not alone in it. That's the kind of work we do inside of Better Husband Academy. That's where you'll find the Better Husband course, where you can connect with other men doing the same work in the community, and where you can join me and other men on live calls every single week. We're all in it together doing the same work. So go to betterhusbandacademy.com right now and start making a real difference in your marriage. Again, that's betterhusbandacademy.com, or just click the link in the show notes. Here's what I want you to take away from this episode. When I think about those guys in the firehouse, the ones who said happy wife, happy life with a laugh that wasn't really a laugh, I don't think they were bad husbands. I think they were tired ones. They'd been running that contract for so long, they forgot there was another way. And the wives on the other end of that deal, they weren't happy either, because what that saying actually builds when a man lives by it is a tired man and a lonely woman, both doing their part, neither one feeling met. So here's the better way. You don't have to carry her happiness. She doesn't have to carry yours. You're not responsible for her happiness. You're responsible to her. You show up when it's easy and you show up when it's hard. You hold your own ground and you stay close enough for her to feel you there. That's the marriage worth building. Not just a happy wife and not just a happy life, but two whole people who choose each other and keep choosing. I just want to say thanks for joining me on this episode of Better Husband. Keep showing up, keep listening, keep taking actions. You're listening to Better Husband. I'm Angelo Santiago, and I'll see you on the next one. Thank you so much for listening. Before you go, I have a quick request. If you've ever gotten any value from the show and you want the show to continue to grow, to access bigger and more knowledgeable guests, and to keep providing you with more ways that you can be a better husband in your marriage, simply leave a rating and a review if you're listening on Apple or Spotify. It only takes a few seconds, and those reviews go a long way in attracting more experts and bigger guests to the show. So if you're feeling up to it, as a favor to me, I'd love to see a rating and a review from you. Thank you so much for being a listener and all your support.